Hello, I'm Robin Vincent and welcome to the July edition of Molten Music Monthly. Well, here we are careering into the summer, and as ever, there's more stuff to look at, more news to talk about, and more things to ponder and try not to purchase. I've had a haircut, my first one since the lockdown thingy, and I'm also trying out manual focus, which is very exciting. I hope that's working for you, because I've had all sorts of trouble with autofocus recently. But let's move on like I know what I'm doing. That's always a plan. So, coming up this month, Bandlab takes on Bandcamp. Roland Zenology gets the JX8P. Online DAW Amped Studio gets VST support. Sensel Morph opens itself up to pure data. Coolaudio gives us a synth on a chip. PreSonus Studio One 5 wants to run the whole show, and the Atoms Squee will control it for you. Implexus is a fabulously glowy synth. Learn everything with Modular Sound Synthesis on the moon. Warhorse gives us a galloping distortion. Insidius brings back sounds we'd rather forget. The Neon Egg Planetarium 2 is probably the most gorgeous effects box I've ever seen. Cover your rack in minifigures with the VVOLT Lego case. We kneel before the Drone King. Behringer reveals an entire ARP 2500 in Eurorack. And the Qubit Surface is banging, clanging, plucking and stringing its way into my rack. But first, Microsoft. Now, last month I dropped a bit of a bombshell about how the new update to Windows 10 is going to remove our ability to tweak the power profiles of laptops, which could potentially render them useless as music-making platforms. Now, Pete Brown from Microsoft, our head audio Windows honcho type guru guy, got in touch to say that that's not actually quite right, although it is right. They are removing what we were using to tweak Windows, but there's another way in. There's a new secret squirrel background registry type code thing which should get us back to where we need to be in terms of controlling power profiles and hopefully dealing with CPU throttling. Is it going to work? I've no idea, because none of my systems have yet updated to the May Windows 10 2020 update. So, don't know yet. But suffice to say that what I said last month is still true, but hopefully we have a solution already. So, don't panic, relax, wait, and hopefully over the next month or so the updates will appear on my machine and we'll be able to move forward, and I'll do a video on how to tweak the new May. It's called the 2004 update. That doesn't refer to the year, it's just the number of the update. The May 2004 Windows 10 update. We will sort it, don't worry. Don't worry. Do you remember Bandlab? There's that Chinese company that bought Cakewalk and has given us essentially Cakewalk audio for free, and they also have their own online DAW called Bandlab and bits and pieces. Well, anyway, they have decided to empower us and enable us to release our own albums online for free in something called Bandlab Albums. It operates very much like Bandcamp in that you create an account, you upload an album, and then you can sell it at whatever price you feel is appropriate. The difference with Bandlab is that they charge you nothing for it, they take no cut, they give you all the money. All the money. It's completely free. That's awesome. That's the sort of thing we want, isn't it? Yeah, kind of it is. I mean, Bandcamp, I think, has been an awesome thing. It's an awesome platform. It's the only place I'm going to be releasing music, I think, mostly. Or is it? Oh, I don't know. That seems to be my plan. It seems to be just such a groovy place full of really nice, lovely people trying to have a bit of a go of it, releasing their music, a little bit of merchandising, some vinyl pops up, otherwise digital downloads, all high quality, great stuff. I like Bandcamp. It feels holistic. It feels organic, and somehow as if it's for you, it's for musicians, it's for the human. That's the feeling I get from Bandcamp, as opposed to something like Spotify, which seems to be corporate, or Apple Music, which seems to be corporate. you know, everything about that just shouts about somebody else doing everything, looking after everything and taking all your money. Whereas Bandcamp has always felt like it's you, it's your place, it's your thing that you're doing. So all power to that kind of thing. Bandlab albums could sweep all that away. And if it's free, is that good? Yes, no, yes, I don't know. What do you think? What do you think? I mean, the biggest downside at the moment of the Bandlab albums is that the quality of the streaming, or the downloads, is only at about 96 kps, PBS. You know, the MP3 thingy, it's at 96 of whatever those things are associated with MP3 quality. So that's not ideal. It's not perhaps even quite CD quality, which is usually regarded to be 128. So, okay, I mean, I guess you're talking about the amount of storage it takes for all of these bleeding files that are going to have to be on their servers, and so it makes some sense to have the resolution slightly lower. But it's probably not going to be ideal for people who are serious about their music. On the other hand, it's free and it's a distribution platform, and it could be huge. Could be huge. Don't know. So there you go. I'm just reporting the news. That's all I'm doing. I don't really know. I'll have to check it out at some point, because but the problem is I don't seem to be able to find the time just to move music from one place to another, let alone start on a whole new platform. So who knows? I'll just leave that one there. Roland Zenology came out a little while ago. In a nutshell, it's a virtual instrument which runs the Zen Core sound engine, which is also found in the most recent Roland hardware synths. The idea is that it will eventually run all of their software versions of their instruments in extraordinary quality and access and deep dive level editing. When it first released, it was relatively simple. It had a whole bunch of presets, which is nice, and a little bit of editing, but nothing of real consequence or depth. Until now. They've now released the JX8P. The JX8P is a classic Roland synthesizer, polyphonic analog with digitally controlled oscillators, producing a whole load of sounds that you kind of strangely recognise, and was kind of one of those first synths that brought along the idea of having a totally crap editing interface. I mean, before that, it was all knobs and sliders and stuff, but then this sort of thing started coming along and you're faced with very little in terms of how to edit. And so Roland also released the PG800 editor, which allowed you to actually get into the internals of the synthesizer. Now, the software version, of course, includes a lot. And what they've done with Zenology is they've started down the road of doing their own GUI for it. So rather than trying to replicate the front of the keyboard or try to make it look anything like a JX8P, it's just done in the Zenology GUI. So I think perhaps the idea is that you'll be able to edit all of these instruments regardless of their source material, because the editor is going to be very, very similar. It certainly streamlines things rather than trying to edit fiddly little knobs on like the Jupiter 8V from Arturia or something of that nature. This gets into the deep sound design of a synthesizer and gives you all of those controls front and center in the GUI. It's nice. You'll be able to share patches with people on hardware and on software versions and other bits and pieces. And it comes with all of the original sounds that you found on the synthesizer, plus a whole load of more stuff. And this is just the start. The Zenology software has updated itself in order to accommodate this, and it's also added some feels for things like the SH101 and other classic Roland synths down the side, which aren't yet populated in terms of presets or sounds. So there's lots more to come in that. It's quite interesting. I've bought into it for the moment, and I'm trying it out when I can find the time, and I'm quite enjoying it, I have to say. I'm going to kind of give it a year and see what I think and see what happens over this coming time to see whether it's something that I'd like to continue subscribing to. So, check it out. There's a free version of Zenology, so you can check out the interface, but the JXHP content for it expands it greatly in terms of what you can do on the editing side. This is a new one on me, to be honest. Amped Studio. Apparently it's a browser-based DAW, so it will run presumably on any system, more or less, within your browser. A bit like Bandlab, I suppose. And off you go, recording stuff, making music, hooray! Not having to deal with huge internet lag and latency when trying to play stuff. But, you can assume that it's more of a playback. You record into it, then you play it back, rather than trying to do any live kind of real monitoring of stuff. But anyway, The idea is that it's really very, very convenient, and it's also great for collaboration because other people can just sign in to your account or whatever and add stuff to it, and you can sign in and change it and work on the same project because the whole thing is literally online. But now they've introduced VST support, which is quite interesting. I mean, that's always a thing that elevates any piece of music software up to another level, the sort of level where I start getting interested, because if you can run your existing collection, massive collection of sounds and plugins, then that's a winner. If you can't, then what's the point? At the moment, they're calling it a VST remote extension. It has limitations in that you can only run one instance of a plugin at a time, although you can run lots of different plugins. Not really sure why that is. You also can't apply any automation currently within Amped Studio, but you can stick a plugin on your audio track and then bounce it, move the things about as it bounces, and you have some form of movement and a way of applying that plugin to your audio. I don't know enough about it, and I haven't tried it out in order to give you any kind of opinion on it, but it's certainly a move in the right direction to be able to use an online browser-based DAW and local VST plugins. Interesting. Sensel Morph is a lovely little groovy type MPE MIDI controller. I have one here. I've done a little bit on it. I need to do some more because it's very, very interesting, getting more interesting all the time because people keep developing interesting things for it, and that's what we like. The latest thing to happen is they're ditching all of these. I mean, all of these flappy bits. No, they're not ditching it. I just mean that, you know, there's this project that is doing away with the bits that go on, the overlays that go on top of here, and just using the sense data all by itself. What they've done is that they've opened up the API to pure data, so that anyone who's into programming plugins and synthesizers and that kind of thing can extract the data that's being generated by the Sensel Morph. So you apply your fingers to here, and it generates touch, pressure, positional data. All of that stuff can be sucked out and applied to a pure data synthesizer or effects plugin. What that means is that people can develop all sorts of synthesizers for the Sensel Morph. All sorts of stuff. Anything you like. You can translate that data into controlling all sorts of things. I mean, it already has a way of programming it yourself, so you can set up any kind of control system you want within that framework. But this just takes this to another level in putting out all of the data and slapping it wherever you want. So you can create incredibly expressive instruments that relate directly to it. It's very interesting. I mean, the Sensel Morph has been around a little while, but in recent times they really seem to have cracked it. They've got it to the right sort of people. Videos are emerging, developments emerging, all sorts of interesting things are going on. I mean, even to the point there's some guy with a plank of wood that slapped on a couple of the morphs and is put kind of like a fretboard on it and is whittling around, and two of them, you know, bolted onto a bit of old board. Brilliant. Do some of that. That's great. But there's a lot of this stuff happening now. I think they've made a lot of right decisions, I think, over the past year, partly with the Thunder overlay, which is getting a lot of attention. I've got that here somewhere. So I've got a ream of these things. Oops. See this thing here, which it's really tempted a lot of modular people and other synthesizer people into using this as an MPE controller for modular, because it, nearest damn it, tries to emulate what the Buchla control system does. So you can map the pressure and the touch to different CV parameters once you've routed this, because this is MIDI or USB ultimately, through some kind of device which then converts that into control voltage. So an FH2 from Expert Sleepers would be ideal, or going through your DAW and then out through CV Tools or Bitwig or something of that nature, or through a USB MIDI to CV converter, something in which to capture that into other things. But you can of course also use it via MIDI, just via MIDI into MIDI things. That's cool too. So, the Sensel Morph thing continues to be interesting, and I like and enjoy following the journey of where that thing's going to go. Now, Coolaudio are a semiconductor manufacturer owned by Music Tribe, I think, who recreate, or amongst other things, they recreate old chips for old synthesizers. All the stuff that Curtis Electronics used to make, or does still sort of make, Coolaudio now makes versions of, which run in all of the Behringer synths, and a lot of people use them in other things as well. Well, they've recently redesigned, rediscovered, I'm not entirely sure what it is, but they've taken an idea which used to be on a Curtis chip and have now re-engineered it as a Coolaudio chip. And it's essentially an entire synthesizer voice on a chip. On a single slab of silicon, you get a couple of VCOs, a 4-pole filter, VCA mixer, LFO, that kind of thing. So like a whole synth on a little chip. And so what this means ultimately is a company like Behringer is going to be able to build polyphonic synthesizers just using duplications of these chips, rather than having to have a chip for every VCO, for every filter, for every VCA. You could relatively simply put together an entirely analog polyphonic synthesizer. Very interesting. The chip is called, very excitingly, the V3397. There you go. That'll be good. So add that to one of your little projects. PreSonus has released Studio One version 5. Oh yes. Is it a doozy? Well, yeah. I mean, Studio One has evolved over the years. It kind of started off as a bit of an upstart. It was, generally aimed more at audio. It liked feeling its way through the Pro Tools feature list and gradually adding those sorts of things. But then when it switched to version 4, there was a lot more coming in for creative people, for composers, for writers, for songwriters. You've still got the massive audio production side, which has improved with every version as well. Big mixer console, plugins, the routing, all that sort of thing going on. Brilliantly. Tracking, lovely. But then you started getting better piano roll editing, drum editing. You got chords editing and arranging and scratch pads and the ability to mark up verses and choruses and swap those about. And things like that. A lot of powerful stuff. And not to mention it also does mastering and delivery. So, PreSonus has always been down this road of trying to provide everything. So to provide a recording platform for audio, a creation platform for composers and writers, then a mastering platform and a delivery platform. So it had the whole lot. The whole lot was done within Studio One. Well, with version 5, they've added on another bit. They've now added on live performance. They want to capture or provide a platform for running live performance. Now, this is not loop-based. This is not an Ableton Live rip-off or anything like that, which is one way you can go. You can start putting in loops and performance elements like that. This is much more directed at the band / singer-songwriter type live performance show gig thing. What am I talking about? Well, it has this new page called the show page, and the show page is essentially a set list. So you put in your songs. What songs am I doing? Put in a list of songs. You then drop in your backing tracks, and you then drop in your virtual instruments and your live instruments, and you build up a track list for each of these songs that you're going to do that has backing, it has vocals, guitar, and virtual instruments. And it's all there saved within this show project. So that when you get to that song, everything gets loaded for you automatically. It's all there. All your vocal effects, your plugins are there, your virtual instruments, your patches are there, the backing track. So you can storm through your gig with it all running on your laptop, everything changing when it's supposed to change, and it will be flipping awesome. Yeah, and it actually is. It's like Mainstage on the Apple, it's like Forte perhaps, or Gig Performer. There are similar things out there which do this, but this is all based within the Studio One environment. And that has its advantages in that you know that workflow, that works, you can use the same plugins in the same places, you can save effects change within the regular Studio One and then load those up in the show bit. It's really quite good. It also gives you like a macro controller interface over the top, which is very touchable, and it's when you run the show, it looks very good on a laptop screen that you could just reach out and touch if you have a touchable system. Yeah, it's clear that they've put a lot of thought into it. So it's a really interesting development. It's not going to be for everyone, because if you're just recording bands, then you've got no reason for it, no need for it. But I think for many people, it could be another reason to move from their current DAW to this one. However, there's something which I think they've missed, and that's that what this show page also says to me is that it makes for a fantastic way of running external hardware. So if I run all of my synthesizers or my external gear through Studio One, if I do that now with the regular track thing, it's a bit annoying. You've got to set up tracks and record enable and set up monitoring in order to hear them or not hear them, and then you've got all these tracks going on. And what the show page seems to do is simplify all of that. So you can have everything running through and just have stuff play back and do a little bit of mixing within it. That, I think, is a fabulous thing. A fabulous idea. But what's missing is it doesn't have any ability to record itself. So all of that music going through it, you can't just hit record and record it. I mean, you think you would, because Studio One is a flipping DAW. But no, there's currently no option to record the output. So even if you're playing a gig and you've got the whole thing running through it, it would be lovely just to be able to hit record and get a stereo recording of your performance. Apparently, according to PreSonus, they don't do this because, well, you're not going to have everything running through it. You're going to have other things running through other things. And so where you want to record it is at the main desk. Yeah, okay, I can see that. But if you're encouraging people to use Studio One as the main hub of your show, then you are probably going to put everything through it just to keep things simple. So why not just add recording? Why not add multi-track recording? I mean, for heaven's sake, it is a DAW. So, yeah, interesting, but also, what? I don't think they're quite there yet. There were other things as well, like the score writing, but the score writing's cool, but it's not desktop publishing score, it's just giving you another editor. And other bits and pieces which are interesting. You can read my full review in Sound on Sound, coming out probably next month. But the other thing that popped up from PreSonus was the Atom I don't know, SQ? We're just going to call it the SQ. SQ? The Atom Askew, or Squid. I don't know, it's a little MIDI controller. It's got like a button keyboard on it. It's got a whole bunch of knobs and a touch grip and transport controls. You know, it's like an uber small compact MIDI controller with a whole load of stuff built in. It has an arpeggiator built in. It could potentially sort of become a performance instrument. And I wonder how that relates to the show. I don't know. I haven't had an opportunity to play on the Air Screw, so I don't exactly know how well that integrates with other stuff. But it wouldn't surprise me if it offers a certain amount of connectivity to that show page, because it just feels right, doesn't it? Right, getting into a bit more hardware now, the Implexus. This is quite an extraordinary looking synthesizer. Oh, yet another synthesizer. Yes, it's another synthesizer. This one is a desktop analog synthesizer that enjoys East Coast and West Coast synthesis. It likes to wavefold, it likes to wave shape, and yet it likes to filter as well. So additive, subtract, I don't know, all those sorts of things stuffed together. What's interesting about it, I mean, other than, it's a great little synthesizer. That's great, that's awesome. We can never have enough, apparently, of desktop synthesizers. But what's awesome about this is the built-in visualization. Yes. So one of the things that's missing from hardware synths is one of the reasons why software synths still have, I believe, some validity, is their ability to animate stuff so that you know what's going on. Don't have that so much on hardware. If you do, it's really, really expensive. Well, with the Implexus, we have a number of the knobs have these kind of half-moon halos around them, which will show you the modulation that's occurring. Brilliant. I love that kind of thing. It's always confusing when you've patched something together and this LFO is going to that. Is it moving it? Oh, I don't know. What have I done? And so, visual indications are something that I personally really enjoy, and it's something that I miss when dealing with hardware as opposed to dealing with software. So they've decided to put in these little curves and these little lights that go around that respond, I am assuming, to the LFOs and to the control voltage that's being pumped into them. So yeah, great idea. I mean, it looks like a nice synth anyway, but this it gives it an edge which perhaps could lend it certainly a spectacular look to your studio, but it also might be extremely helpful. I picked up a new book. This one here. It's called Modular Sound Synthesis on the moon. What's it about? Well, it's about modular synthesis, right? On the moon. Well, not really on the moon. It's by Anna Martinova, who also goes by the name of Tulpa and Dolce. And it is a fabulous book all about modular synthesis. Now, Anna runs the Modular School of Synthesis in Amsterdam, also now in Berlin. And this is essentially the curriculum of their entire course. And it's in a beautiful coffee table book. Just lovely. The artwork in here is just gorgeous and fantastic. And the depth going into all sorts of things, into patch examples, into the way synthesis works and is put together, is just lovely. Just lovely. Now, I've got Anna coming onto a live stream tomorrow night, if this is out soon enough, which it might not be, but it's Thursday night, so you might have missed it already, unfortunately. But she's coming onto the Molten Chat live stream for a bit of a chat about what she does, because she also performs as a DJ, she performs as a modular musician, and she is always churning out jams on Facebook and places like that. And I just love her passion she has for education, the drive that she has towards making Modular Moon, which is her school, a success. And it's not been easy, but it's still working and still going for it, and we're going to chat about that tomorrow night. So you can buy the book from their Modular Moon website. It's not cheap. It's not cheap. It's not a throwaway item, but I think it's worth every penny if you're interested in diving a little bit deeper into what modular synthesis is all about. Right, here's a hefty galloping lump of a Eurorack module. It's called Warhorse, for reasons that are unlikely to become clear, and it's a multifunctional multi-effect Eurorack module. We're talking about a VCA infected with distortion. We've got BBD delay and nasty raspy wasp style filtering. Everything feeds and collapses alarmingly into one another. So you're running, masses of grit and distortion, and then you're delaying that and feeding that back through, and then you're filtering the heck out of it. Nice. I mean, it's a disaster of fantastic proportions, I think is the idea. And the other thing that I really like is it has a bypass switch. Now, the bypass switch is a rarity in Eurorack. I'm never entirely sure why, because it would be nice sometimes, you're going through a filter or something, just to then not go through it. I mean, obviously you can turn things to a degree where they're not really making an effect, but they're still applying an effect, so this is a multi-effects module built like a guitar pedal, and in fact there is a guitar pedal version, which perhaps gives you the reason why it has things like bypass built in, because it comes from the world of pedals. So you have this awesome multi-effects unit slapped into your Eurorack, and you can just bypass it and have a lovely sweet tunes going through, and then switch it on to crunch and delay and filter it all over the place. It just looks amazing. It's a big chunky hunk of a Eurorack module that's just going to do nasty things to your sound, and that's always got to be a good thing. The brilliant named Insidius is yet another attempt to drag the old SID chip out of the Commodore 64 and give it to us like it's something that we want. Some people want it. I appreciate that some people want it. This has been developed by Mike Clark, who's a Commodore 64 games sound design veteran, I suppose, and it's taken him 5 years to pull together this idea of replacing the hard SID cards that he used to have in his computer, because the hard SID cards would replicate the SID thing on a PCI card that goes in the back of your computer, but there are no PCI slots anymore, and development on the hard SID thing just fell away years and years ago. So he's been developing this to try to replace that sound, and that's what he's done. So he's got the whole thing, he's emulated the thing down to absolutely every detail on every version of the SID chip, and has opened that up into a nice VST plugin style that we can all enjoy those lovely noises from. And actually, to be fair, there's a lot of these sort of SID emulations around, but there's nothing quite gone to the depth and the level and the detail that this has. It runs in Reactor Player, and so you also get access to other bits and pieces in the ways that you can expand it and develop it within Reactor if you so choose. But otherwise, I mean, the demo sounds alone just ring bells in my head, because I was a massive Commodore 64 gamer when I was a kid, and it's all there. It sounds, it sounds spot on. Good job. Now this is really a guitar pedal, but I'm not going to let that ruin what is just the best looking effects processor I have ever seen. You know, despite the pressy buttons that you press with your feet, it looks like some kind of synth console. It's beautiful, lovely, just really nice. Aluminium, pink and blue knobs, side cheeks of wood. Oh, just what a lovely thing. And then built into it are actually some really nice effects, because it's a multi-effects box and it's got built-in reverb, tape echo, a lush stereo chorus, and even a side chain compressor. What's it? I mean, essentially, you know, I'm sold just on the looks because I'm so superficial in that way. It just looks like a great box. Sort of box that would be, well, it's instantly Instagrammable. It would be in everything. Potted plant, this, perfect, you're off. But also having a decent, fun, engaging desktop effects unit is something that interests me a great deal. I do use guitar pedals from time to time, and you know, turning them on and off is a bit of a hassle, and things like that, and the connections and so on. But with this, it's just the way it looks, the way it stands, and also the quality of the effects coming out of it are all simply awesome. So the Neon Egg Planetarium 2, as it's called, it is hand built, so if you want one you have to get onto the website, get onto the waiting list, and then just hang in there to see what happens. The VVOLT Lego case is not something that I expected to see coming along. It's just a little petite 42 HP case that's 3D printed and built to apparently accommodate Lego. I mean, it kind of looks great, sort of. It looks fun and interesting. I mean, of course, it's not Lego. One mustn't say it's Lego. It's in some kind of compatible brick format because it's not actually Lego, but apparently it does stick to the same stuff. So my thought about it is to have a little one of these Lego cases and then stick lots and lots of minifigures all over it. It would look awesome. Again, very Instagrammable, I think. Oh, shut up. Anyway, a fascinating thing. It comes out of Jakarta. It comes as a kit and only costs about 40-50 quid. Of course, you've got to add your own power supply to that and so on. But it's quite a nice idea. I mean, in some ways, I mean, is it a complete waste of time? Are you going to have this Lego thing knocking around that you're never going to really actually attach other bricks to? Or is it a really fun thing that you can build on and incorporate it into a larger visage or something? I just thought it was fun. Okay, that's from VVOLT. It's the Lego Eurorack case. Something that calls itself the Drone King. It's got to be pretty awesome, don't you think? It's from Electro Faustus, I think. Faustus, called the EF209 Drone King. What it is, I don't know. It's a new version of a box. It's a desktop box, lovely in white, beautiful with those blue shiny knobs. And you've kind of got two sides to it, two lots of 3 oscillators that you can combine and blend together and just set going. Drones, the clue is in the name, you know, just set it going, set different pitches, and off it goes, and then you start applying modulation, you start filtering, you start messing about with it, and you find yourself on another plane of existence. It's got LFOs built in, along with a filter for all of that sound shaping and soundscape manipulation. Again, it's kind of a pedal thing, or at least it's from a pedal manufacturer. And so you assume it's going to run through other pedals in order to provide the reverbs and the delays and other bits and pieces that are perhaps missing from something that would call itself a drone machine. But otherwise, I thought it was really quite interesting. Qubit have finally shipped their Surface module, which we saw at NAMM back earlier in the year. Remember NAMM back in January before any of this craziness happened? You know, that was the times when you would get together and look at product in a convention centre. Everyone's like rubbing shoulders and fingers and sweating over each other and shouting really loudly into each other's ears because you can't hear because of the sound of the demo. Wow. Can you imagine those sorts of things even happened? I've heard at this point that NAMM 2021 is unlikely at this point. I don't know when conventions are going to get back onto the scene and whether any of these big shows are even going to be in the future. Who knows? Troubling times. Anyway, back to Qubit. Now, Qubit I like Qubit. I like them a lot. They don't give away much information. They don't give away much product. So there are very few demo videos of their stuff or explanations of what they do. I have a Bloom. I've had a Bloom since it came out, and I still don't really understand it. I need to spend some time with it because, as I say, very little explanation. You kind of got an idea of what it does, and that was enough to push me into, I think that's quite an experimental, exploratory purchase. Let's go with that. I haven't really got any further with it. Anyway, I'm going to give it another shake with the Surface. Now, the Surface is a physical modelling oscillator. What's that? So that means it does things like strings and clangs and bangs and plucks. That's interesting. Of course, the classic one for this is the Rings, which is a resonator, and that creates these gorgeous string plucks and strum sounds out of anything you like. And everybody has a Rings, and they stuff it into clouds and have a wonderfully ambient time. Now, I kind of bypassed that because I didn't like clouds very much, and I thought, I can't just get the same as everybody else. But I like the idea of it, and so for me, I got the 2HP Pluck. That's been great to a point. It's got a lovely sound to it. The difficulty I have with it is just the weeniness of the knobs that just ends up driving me nuts, and it's difficult to then tune in to anything else. So I've had half an eye out on something which could perhaps replace the 2HP Pluck. Lovely though it is, it's just not quite working in my situation. This Surface, I saw it at NAMM, I was thinking, maybe that could be it. So it came out and I thought, sorry, I'll grab one. So I have. It's not here yet, but I'm going to give it a go and I'll make lots of videos about it, I promise. What is it? So as I say, it's a clangy, stringy, membraney, resonant, physical modelling type oscillator. You've got controls over tone, over strike, over model and decay, as well as pitch. Of course, it can do up to 8 voices of polyphony. It talks about itself being multi-timbral, which doesn't quite work well with me. Multi-timbral tends to mean you can run more than one thing at the same time and address them completely independently. Can't really do that with the Surface, at least I don't think so. I think you can only address one thing, but you can change modes, which means as one model is sounding, you can change to another sound so that that can sound at the same time because of the polyphony and the overlapping of the sustain or the decay, or whichever one it is that does that. And so therefore it can sort of do 2 timbres at once, 3 timbres at once, multi-timbral. Yeah. All right, we'll let them have that. Anyway, it's a nice looking module because it's from Qubit and they do this style which is really quite something, really quite futuristic and unique. Quite like that, and I hope it's going to come up with an awesomely beautiful sound. And so because of that, I think it might replace my 2HP, in which case I might have a 2HP to give away. I might have 2HP Pluck to give away. Should I do that? Maybe what I'll do, I'll give it away to a patron, because my patrons are awesome. They're a small bunch of wonderful people who throw me a couple of dollars every month in order to keep me bouncing along, and they need some love and attention. And so I think I'm going to give it over to the Patreon community and single one of those out for the gift of a 2HP Pluck. So if you'd like to be involved in the potential of getting your hands on a 2HP Pluck, then sign up as a Patreon. Give us a couple of dollars. You could sign up for 1 month and then unsubscribe and then not give me any more money. That's fine. But if you'd like to get your hands on the 2HP Pluck potentially, then I think perhaps I'll do that. Or maybe I won't. Maybe I'll keep you on your toes. I don't know. You're just going to have to sign up to find out. And finally, a bit of Behringer for you. Oh yes, they've decided to do the ARP 2500. The ARP 2500. I mean, that's the enormous, fills a room type of synthesizer that everybody thinks they want, but nobody really knows how to operate. And Behringer have just revealed pictures of it as Eurorack modules. So it's not quite so huge. No, I mean, it fits into one of their Go cases, however many 200 HP that is. And I have to say that the modules look absolutely awesome. They look completely gorgeous. They look right. The knobs are perfect. The colours, the way that they look and they've addressed it, it's great. The layout, is good. The buttons, yeah, they've done a thoroughly good job. I mean, a lot of this, I think, is going to be down to Rob Keeble. Now, he runs AMS Synths, and he's been trying for a long, long time to replicate the ARP 2500. Something like 15 years he spent developing his own clone of this sort of thing. And he was the guy, I don't know if you remember, when Behringer announced their ARP 2600 clone, he was the guy who presented it, because he's been working with Behringer for about the last year in order to help them along with their projects and for them to realise the dreams that he's had of producing these sorts of synthesizers. So the 2600, which we still haven't seen, has been chugging along, but this 2500 is more than likely Rob's work. And that's great. You can't fault that, really, regardless of how you feel about Behringer and the way they do business or don't do business or whatever. This is a fantastic project. It's bringing to life this old modular synthesizer, which nobody really has access to anymore, and gives us the potential of being able to use it. With a caveat, and I say this a lot about all of the Behringer's choices on Eurorack so far, is that when you replicate something that's really old and vintage like that, you tend to bring along all of the problems with it at the same time. So like they've done with the System 100 they've done, and the System 55, they've replicated the Roland system and the Moog one, and they've brought along with it the S-trig, V-trig problems and the labeling and the non-standardization of all of that into the Eurorack space. Now, Eurorack has been fighting for years to try to get better, to have better ways, smoother ways, a more coherent way of working. And along comes Behringer with all these ridiculously cheap but decent modules, and muddies the waters again and makes everything confusing. And I think that's a shame. Although for people who want a System 100 or a System 55, it's brilliant, it's perfect, that's exactly what these are. Or who wants a 2500, fantastic, here's a 2500, off you go. But I personally think that they should take that technology, sure, emulate it, model it, recreate it, clone it, whatever, but also just bring it up to date so that it fits well, so that it's understandable, so that you're not having to learn some form of really old CV wrangling in order to get it to function with your other modules. That's my only fear, I think. Also, of course, there's the whole matrix modulation thing is missing. All of those sliders that would route different things from different places. None of that is in evidence as yet, although Behringer have been working on a pin matrix. We've seen pictures of that, but that's probably for a synthy clone of some kind. But who knows? So anyway, these do look genuinely gorgeous, and it'll be interesting to see what happens with all of that. Right, I think that's it. That'll have to do us for now. Now, I'm off on holiday for a week or two possibly, so not going to be able to do the live stream this Sunday, but we'll do one when I get back, and I'll post something about that in due course. But otherwise, I'm in the middle of a lot of work that I'm just going to have to put aside and, go and spend some time offline for a little while, and then I'll come back to them. But I've still got all of the Pocket Operator modular stuff to do. I've got the Ratchet, I've got the Perkle, I've got the Descartes Dream, I've got the Bloom to look at. Lots of things, lots of software as well. All sorts of bits and pieces to look at and plenty to get stuck into. So you know where to come in order to find fascinating content about all sorts of things. So don't forget, I have Anna Martinova, Adolpa and Dolcia, chatting with me on the Molten Chat either tonight or tomorrow night, or you might have already passed it. But I have a whole load of these live streams which you can go and access on the YouTube channel with interesting, fascinating and thoroughly enjoyable people. And I hope to continue that going into the future. Although after Anna, I don't have anything else planned, but we shall see what occurs. Otherwise, all the usual things. If you enjoy this video, please do subscribe. Please send us a message down in the comments. It's always good to talk to people. And if you're feeling particularly daring, then join us on Patreon. Remember, there could be a 2HP pluck in it for you. Maybe. And in the meantime, if you're going anywhere this summer, please do stay safe and make some more tunes.